Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun. All right, guys. Today's date, July 23rd, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, most Will Buchanan on the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before we get started, guys, we do try to be a family-friendly podcast sometimes, but hey, words do fly, and of course, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, not a lot we can get into this weekend, but let's get into it anyway. The Democrats are doing a lot. Keep in mind, guys, we're 2 months and counting away from the midterm elections. We are 2 months away from Republicans trying to convince idiots to vote for them again, and Democrats trying to convince minority women voters to vote for them. Although it's probably going to be a little bit easier now since Roe v. Wade is overturned, and it's pretty much the GOP said in one whole voice that we do not care about women. So there you go. Aside from that, Roe v. Wade, like I said before, and then many others before me have said before, that is not the only thing that the GOP and the ultra-religious conservatives have in their sights. However, Democrats are trying to basically do a little bit of damage control by making sure that same-sex marriage laws are covered. Check it out.
With court-given rights now in jeopardy, Democrats pushing to enshrine them into law.
We ought to reaffirm it before the court overthrows it.
Despite 7 years of precedent on same-sex marriage, new fears after the overturning of Roe that the Supreme Court could revisit its 2015 marriage decision, leading to momentum to ensure they can't.
Our country's history is that we expand rights, we don't go backwards.
Yeas are 267.
47 Republicans joined House Democrats Tuesday to enshrine the right into law. Now the Senate hoping to take up the cause.
I want to bring this bill to the floor, and we're working to get the necessary Senate Republican support to ensure it would pass.
A handful of Republicans signaling support.
This is an issue that many Americans, regardless of their political affiliation, feel has been resolved. So I think its time has come.
Public sentiment backs that up, broadly and among Republicans. But that support is far from widespread in Congress.
It's a pure messaging bill. I mean, it's obviously settled law right now.
Other Republicans echoing Justice Clarence Thomas, who wrote that decisions on gay marriage and right to contraception should be revisited.
Look, Obergefell, like Roe versus Wade, ignored 2 centuries of our nation's history. I think that decision was clearly wrong when it was decided.
Some Democrats want to act fast on this, suggesting they use some days out of their August recess to vote on it. But our sources tracking the numbers say they aren't sure they have enough Republican votes yet to do it.
So let's look at it this way, folks, that, again, I can't knock the Democrats. This is pretty much doing what you can do before the midterms. Now, before Roe versus Wade, I sat there and said, I was the first person to say it, that Democrats are going to have a hard time because of a not so good track record. A lot of campaign promises did not get met for various reasons and personnel. At the same time, Biden did kind of give more money to Ukraine and other places than giving a one-time stimulus check that apparently some people in Congress believe that we are still riding off of 4 months later. Figure that one out. That also being said, guys, I can't blame the Democrats for trying to do this because it is amazing to me how GOP are going to sit there and say, well, it's the law of the land. It shouldn't be messed with. It's interesting that just merely a month ago, we were saying the same thing about Roe versus Wade. It's the law of the land. It should not be overturned. Guess what? A conservative leading Supreme Court overturned it. Do you not think they won't be able to do the same thing to interracial same-sex marriage? Which I found funny because Clarence Thomas is married to a whale of a woman. I said whale. I mean, it is kind of insulting to the whale. But he is married to a white woman. So you would think of all people, you shouldn't vote against your own interests. Just saying. But again, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, that is right. Whenever it gets up to the Senate, We don't know what they'll do. If it's a party vote, you would think that all 50 Democrats would go along with it. But one name just keeps coming up, and I call him the albatross in the Biden administration. The person that no matter what, nothing progressive, nothing climate change will get past him. He is literally the wall that Trump asked for, that Republicans didn't create, but they'll definitely take the Christmas in July present. I am literally talking about Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin, the man who single-handedly stopped the Voting Rights Act, the man who single-handedly stopped the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, the man who single-handedly killed the Build Back America plan, the man who single-handedly killed anything with climate change in it. This individual right here, who is literally a walking conflict of interest himself, has literally been the roadblock to being progressive in America. That being said, however, he did produce a bill in which Democrats are deciding to go ahead and accept because they feel like it's a take what they can get kind of moment, because Joe Manchin is moving forward with his own slimmed down bill for lowering drug pricing and health insurance funding, but leaving such things as climate change off the bill. I have sat there and told you guys multiple times, Joe Manchin is from West Virginia. West Virginia is known for coal mining companies. Unfortunately, coal like itself is a dying industry right next to fracking. However, Joe Manchin believes that climate change is a little too strict. That, he wants to avoid inflation because he feels we're going to be spending too much on new Green Deal products that include wind, solar, and water. And yet, for the same time, this is also a man that sits basically on the board of the board of directors for a coal mining company in his state. Please, oh please, do not explain how that is not a conflict of interest. Even more so that, of course, keep in mind, he did not want to approve a woman on the EPA because, well, intents and factors, she was definitely pro-climate change. Again, something that thwarts Manchin and his checkbook and his friends' checkbooks. But Manchin, again, is a moderate Democrat. As I call moderate Democrats, Republican light. Again, I'm not surprised by that he would submit a bill that would be without climate change, but hey, at least we can get prescription drug costs and health insurance funding for the next 2 years through the Affordable Care Act. So there's that. But again, if I was in West Virginia and I was a Democrat, I would run against him. Trust me, you have all the ammunition you need. That being said, Democrats is not the only thing they've been working on. They have actually went ahead and unveiled their very long-awaited marijuana legalization bill, which would basically decriminalize marijuana and also would go to scrub those with marijuana convictions on their records. It has been a long time coming, as said earlier, Chuck Schumer wants to bring this to the floor and vote on it, as he should. Just because I have been saying for the longest time, guys, marijuana is like I'll be honest with you, it is the next economic boom. We have seen it happen in cities and states where marijuana is legal. Those cities and states have so much more revenue that they're loaning it out to other states. There hasn't been a state yet, where marijuana is legal that they've been in the red. Almost every state's been in the black. And the war on drugs was never about marijuana. No. It was just Reagan. It was Reagan at his finest that wanted to sit there and say, well, we need to stop marijuana because marijuana does so many things. No, in the words of Cat Williams, there's only three side effects of marijuana. None of them include death. None of them include addiction. They just chill you out, make you sleepy, and then you're hungry afterwards. Pretty much every American after every Super Bowl. The thing about this is, guys, I got nothing against marijuana. I don't smoke it, but I know plenty of people that enjoy it. There are so many applications, not just in the medical field, but also the mechanical field as well, that the cannabis plant can be used. And again, it's so funny, but the one thing, because keep in mind, remember prohibition with tobacco and alcohol were outlawed because, virtues and religion and church and state and all that. Yeah, what happened? We legalized it, we taxed it, had a little bit of a boom from it, and been peaceful ever since. Imagine what happens if you do marijuana. Just saying, because it's hard to track crime when you're high. That's all I'm saying. But other things that the Democrats are up to, specifically Biden, who was unfortunately he was tested positive for COVID, but seems to be doing well. But again, I feel like Biden's Biden's staunchiest criticizers are going to feel a little bit validated. Why? Because Biden, in order for him to combat the rising crime wave in America, has unfortunately went back to his roots. He has asked Congress for a $37 billion, that is $37 billion, be a billion with a B, budget request for funding law enforcement and crime prevention. I know a lot of you people are going, Crime Bill 2.0. I can't argue with you. I can't. Because it's exactly what, he was the architect behind the crime bill. Democrats and Republicans both voted for it. However, he has already given a substantial amount to law enforcement across the U.S. to spend, and now he's actually asking for $37 billion more in order to basically combat the rising crime wave. And again, this bothers me because I can't help but think of the crime bill all over again. Keep in mind that you're giving more money to law enforcement, although we're not changing anything about law enforcement. What about the neighborhoods, the low income, the ones that are devoid of financial, educational opportunities? Nothing from there. And yet at the same time, more police and more criminalization seems to be the answer. Which hopefully the Democrats will be against, because the simple fact of the matter is more can be done by just saying we basically need to hire more officers and increase our justice system. We already did that in the 80s. We saw how that worked. It only benefited the corporate prison industry. That's all I'm saying. But moving right along, guys, speaking of law enforcement, there's a couple of stories that we're about to play. Both are very graphic and unfortunately not intended for younger viewers, but through the eyes of a black man, this is becoming all too much of a very disturbing reality.
This is 25-year-old Brandon Calloway today, healing. But attorney Andre Wharton says he's still in pain. According to a police affidavit, this all started Saturday after Oakland police say Calloway drove through a stop sign. Police said Calloway was also clocked for speeding, 32 in a 20-mile-per-hour zone, leading officers to initiate a traffic stop. But they say Calloway would not pull over.
We have not watched the squad car, dash car cam to see when they actually activated their lights, blue lights and sirens, but they followed him for a while. At some point, they initiated their lights and sirens.
Eventually, the pursuit ended at a home on Laurel Glen Drive, where police say Calloway ran inside.
Brandon obviously was trying to figure out, hey, what's going on here? Why are you all following me? I'm not violating the law. They commenced to speaking with Brandon or trying to speak to him. He's clueless as to why they continue to pursue him when he didn't believe he had done anything wrong.
When officers concluded that Calloway needed to be detained, they say he ran from him inside the house. Officers say they kicked in 2 doors, used a taser and a baton to take him into custody.
Brandon, stop resisting! Brandon, just stop resisting! Just stop! Just stop! No! Just get on the ground! Get on the ground, Brandon! Get on the ground! Get off of the stand!
Just remaining hopeful that, what happened to him will come to light and that Oakland will acknowledge it, Oakland police and the town of Oakland, and that his story will serve as an example for other police departments and other officers who are trying to do the good work of protecting and serving citizens. So.
And again, that's hard to watch. Hard to watch because that man that they showed there, as he explained, said that he rolled through a stop sign, said that he was doing 32 to 20, and yet the officers decided to follow him. Can't understand why he ran into a house. They decided to kick in said house, and then decided to detain him with damn near lethal force. All I can sit there and say, for a traffic stop? A traffic stop. My thing is, why does it even need to go that far? Why does it even need to go that far? For a traffic stop? A 32 and a 20? Hardly reckless driving. Supposedly ran through a stop sign? Doesn't scream terrorist to me. Yet officers decide to follow him. He runs into a house. instead of de-escalating the situation and trying to see why he ran, they decided to treat him as they tried to see him as hostile. Even more so that you detain him versus just asking him questions. Like, hey, why throw the stop sign? Or, why were you doing 32 and a 20? It just amazed me so that officers at this point get so hyped up that the only thing they can do is to detain forcefully. And it never ceases to amaze me. Why do you need your baton? I mean, all the things you got. See, this is the thing that kills me about officers, especially like Kim Potter. Kim Potter kills me where it's like, well, I took out my taser thing with my gun. There's a big ass difference between a taser and a gun, weight-wise and design-wise. But you have mace, you have non-lethal options, and there's two of you. And yet, instead of you trying to talk him down and try to get a situation, you decide to detain him. I don't know what it is. This is why I say law enforcement, police reform could use a lot, training-wise. I have said this many times, and I have yet to be called out wrong on this, that you train longer to be a plumber, a hairstylist, an anesthesiologist, than a contractor, than you do law enforcement. Correct me if I'm wrong, you're in Middle Tennessee. It takes you less than 6 months in the police academy, and you're already out there in force. The recruitment drops still going as we speak. There's less training to be a police officer, and that should be effing scary. We should be at the level that these other countries are when it comes to law enforcement. The simple fact of the matter is that, yes, you should be educated. Yes, you should be qualified. Yes, you should be psychologically evaluated. Yes, you should be taught de-escalation and special attention skills to actually notice odd or unusual behaviors. It's not that difficult, folks. But yet every time these stories come up, much like this one, it just feels like it's excessive. And it always seems to happen to black men. And yet, you will still see a whole bunch of people try to sit there and justify the police. Why do you run? Black men and black people in general don't have a good track record with traffic stops because we're not around to tell our story. We're not around to tell our side of it. Officers, all they have to say is certain keywords. I fear for my life. I fear for the safety of those involved. I believed him to be hostile. That's all it takes. And people immediately, back the blue, back the police officers. Thank our officers for the job that they do. No. There comes to a point there needs to be accountability. And that story, hopefully, as we'll follow it, will have that. But unfortunately, the next story is, again, a split-second decision that makes me wonder, did the officers act too quickly in this, or are they already assuming hostile intentions when they shot this man in the back? Just saying.
72 hours after San Bernardino police shot and killed Rob Adams, police released a nearly 6-minute video, which includes new body-worn camera footage. We're pausing the video right before Adams is shot.
As officers arrived, they spotted 2 males.
Police Chief Darren Goodman narrating through much of the footage in which he explains one of 2 officers fired at Adams as he was running away because they feared for their safety and the safety of others. In the video, police say this is the gun they recovered from Adams.
The officers exited their vehicle and gave Adams verbal commands, but he immediately ran toward 2 parked vehicles with the gun in his right hand. Officers briefly chased Adams, but seeing that he had no outlet, they believed he intended to use the vehicle as cover to shoot at them.
After the officer fires, the camera captures the officer hovering over Adams before he's taken to paramedics.
Hey, you're going to be okay. Stay with me, okay?
San Bernardino police say the officers were conducting surveillance in an unmarked car after reports of a man with a weapon in the parking lot of an illegal gambling business. Tonight, they added the location has a history of criminal activity, including an armed robbery involving Adams as a suspect. However, it is not clear whether the officers knew the man seen approaching their unmarked vehicle was Adams before they opened fire. We asked retired LAPD Sergeant and use of force expert Cheryl Dorsey to weigh in.
My guess is that when those officers pulled up in that unmarked vehicle, this individual did not realize that they were the police. Once they stepped out of the vehicle, they were in full uniform. Although this young man didn't know who they were when that car rolled up, he understood exactly who they were when they stepped out of that vehicle.
Adam's family contends he was not armed, but rather holding a cell phone. And the bottom line for them?
The boy ran. You've seen the video. He hunted him down like a dog.
In this case, we have a videotape that shows that a man who appears to be unarmed, holding a cell phone that has been portrayed as a gun, running from the police towards an area where there's a high wall that he could not have escaped from in any event. There was absolutely no justification for the police to shoot him.
Hedy Chang, NBC.
And again, you know, if we argue that, oh, well, he had a gun, oh, he was in an area that was known for robbery, oh, he was considered himself a suspect in a robbery that happened in the same area. Okay, but be that as it may, 2 questions. If the assailant is running from you, are they a threat? Especially if they're running into an area where there is a wall. He ran, as you can, I mean, I'm just guessing on his trajectory, ran between 2 cars, and there's a wall as you're running to it. It just makes me wonder, how much of a threat was he? And at the same time, what was actually said? That they got, that as soon as you got the car, they ran, they instituted a chase, pulled out their guns, and fired at him while his back was turned. I say it again. How is it justified? It would be justified if he had it, if his gun was out, it was visible, if he was making a threatening move toward the officers. But again, what do officers usually say at this point? Oh, well, we feared for our lives. We feared for the safety of those nearby or in the vicinity. But the man who was shot cannot sit there and, for lack of better words, explain himself. He can't explain his actions. He can't explain what happened when the police walked up on him. But now, as he's shot, and the officer still got his gun drawn, and at this point, the man is no longer a threat, you still have a gun drawn. The man's no longer a threat. You have him on the ground. He's bleeding out, and you still have a gun on talking about, man, just stay with me. Just stay with me. You're going to be okay. Police officers shoot to kill. They don't shoot to wound. That's how they're trained. Police officers are trained to shoot to kill. However, the problem is, it's a little hard to justify a shooting when the intended target's back is to you. And again, not being a threat. But both those cases will follow as it comes along. This is why I sit there and say, I understand why people, I mean, it's amazing. Law enforcement still scratches their head. Why don't minorities trust us? I'll give you 2 good reasons that I just played in the last 10 minutes why we don't trust them. But we'll follow stories as we come along. Another story, which again, guys, I keep saying, because we're in this ultra-conservative that people believe that church and state should be together, that you believe that you should do whatever you want on a company dime. I said stories like this were coming. I said it. People didn't believe me. I am talking about a couple that went to Walgreens. A couple went to Walgreens to go buy condoms, and a Walgreens employer who was there refused to sell them condoms, saying that it is, quote unquote, because of his faith. Now think about this. Walgreens is a drugstore. We've all been to a Walgreens or a CVS or Walgreens-like store, depending on what part of the country you're in. We've all had to go buy condoms. We've all had to go there for cough drops. We all had to go there for medicines, prescriptions. Come on now, we've all been there. But condoms, though, responsible? That's where, so you're buying condoms and it's responsible. You go up to the cashier and he says, I will not ring up your condoms because of my faith. And the messed up part about all this is, guys, the messed up part about all this is that something in Walgreens policies, right? That Walgreens is permitting this under their policy that an employee can refuse to sell condoms on religious grounds. That is something Walgreens is saying, yeah, that's kind of permitted under our policies. So you can imagine what happens next. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a boycott, because how dare you? Because again, guys, remember we joked about this a long time ago. Remember that one lady out of Kentucky who refused to issue same-sex marriages because of her faith and religion? Remember how crazy, how funny we thought that was? This woman would go so far to where she would literally be a mini celebrity among conservatives. Kim Davis, I believe, is her name. This is going to be that same person. Because this is the thing about it. I never understood. Look, if you have your own business, cool. You can set the rules. You can set the right to refuse service to anybody. You can. That's part of it. But if you're working for a company, you have to go by their bylaws and policies. Now, if Walgreens does have this in their policy as it's claimed, then it's going to be a lot of backlash. Because the one thing that people will do is not go to a place where they're not wanted, especially for just buying condoms. And that's what it is. Condoms, contraceptions, birth control, that's the true attack. Because there are those out there who want to impose their faiths on others because they feel they are morally superior, when really they're morally jackasses. And again, I'm not surprised by this, that they would rather you bring a child to this world because that's what they believe through their deluded faith, versus actually just being a productive citizen and employee and just selling you the condoms, saying, have a great day, and get you through the rest of their shifts. But I just wanted to point that out. That is slowly becoming reality. You know what's going to be next? What's going to be next? Somebody is not going to sell you barbecue because there's something about pig in their religion they don't like. I'm just saying, where does the line get drawn? Because it's going to happen. But speaking of things that are going to happen, guys, the January 6th commission has wrapped up. And again, I have said it before, and I'll say this again. They are building a case to basically criminalize Trump. And the next couple of minutes should definitely, if not going to be the nail in the coffin, it's pretty close to it.
Now joining me live for more, Zorine, so many big moments in that hearing. We just saw so many of them. What do you think the key takeaways were?
This is not over. I think that's the key takeaway. Look, we know that they're going to have more committee hearings in September, and the committee really laid out last night multiple things about the president, some of which he continues to do today. But one of the things that he did during January 6th, for over 3 hours, he did not call off the mob at the Capitol. Instead, he was asking for a list of senators to help him to continue to overturn that election. The next day, when he shot that video talking about the seamless transfer of power, the committee has multiple outtakes, almost an hour long, of what he said. And one of the things that he said was this election is now over. But then he looked at his staff and he said he didn't want to say that. At the end of the day, on January 6th as well, I think this is notable. He looked at his staffer, according to the committee, and he did not say anything about what was going on at the Capitol, anything that had transpired. He said, Mike Pence let me down.
All right, as we saw in some of those clips, White House counsel Pat Cipollone appeared to suggest that Trump didn't want people to leave the Capitol, but said he couldn't reveal the communications he had with the president. We saw that little moment there with his attorney. Let's talk about the power of that moment.
Incredibly powerful. Our reporter on the ground said that got a very big reaction in the room. And as you said, he said, I can't think of anyone, on that day who didn't want people to get out of the Capitol. And then the committee asked him, what about the president? He fumbled for a bit. He looked at his lawyer. They had a conversation on the side. It was assumed that he was bound by attorney-client privilege, and that's why he didn't want to respond directly to that question. He started saying, obviously, I thank you. It was very clear that he meant that the president of the United States did not want the violence to stop. I also thought it was notable, by the way, Kira, that interaction between the comms director and the rapid response director that they showed over those text messages. One of them said he thought it was terrible that Trump did not acknowledge the Capitol police officer who died. The other one said everything he said about supporting law enforcement was a lie. These are his own staffers, Republicans in Trump's White House.
Right. And former President Trump, of course, responded to the hearing overnight. He put out this statement where he appeared to defend the plot to overturn the election on January 6th. He said, Mike Pence told me and everybody else there was nothing he could do about the electoral vote count. It was etched in stone. But if so, how come the Democrats and rhinos are working so hard to make sure there is nothing a VP can do? Referring there to a bipartisan bill aimed at addressing vagueness in the Electoral Count Act, by the way, and that was significant.
really significant. I mean, there should be no one person who can have that much power, right? I mean, he continued talking last night about large-scale voter fraud. He blamed Mike Pence, and he also attacked one of the staffers who testified last night. He attacked Sarah Matthews. He said clearly she was lying, and then he also said a line that we've heard many times from Donald Trump. He said he barely even knew her, or he did not know her.
Zareen Shaw, thanks so much. And Republican committee member.
Says a lot, doesn't it? Says a lot. It says so much that, again, they're building a case. Say what you want. I mean, literally and figuratively, say what you want. They're building a case to where Mr. Expired Cheeto Puff maybe he's facing criminal charges. He may be facing trying to corrupt a election. He may be facing charges of obstructing Congress. He may actually do it. But again, it's things we already know. But like I usually say in the court of opinion, it's not, in the court of opinion, you could be guilty and that's the end of it. But in actual court, we have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt. And it's kind of, revenge the best dish served cold, because Liz Cheney was the one giving the closing statements. And you're right, they can turn around and come right back in September with another hearing, right in the middle of the midterms. Would not be surprising. But again, there is some good news. There is already one person that is going to be sentenced to prison already, and it's Trump's right-hand man, Mr. Nationalist Steve Bannon himself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Terry Moran, and we've got continuing coverage now. This breaking news here in Washington, D.C. in the case against former White House strategist and key Trump ally Steve Bannon. A verdict has been reached in his case. Bannon has now been found guilty on both counts of contempt of Congress that he was accused of after he refused to comply with a subpoena for his testimony and a subpoena for documents by the Congressional Select Committee that's investigating the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. The prosecutor in her closing argument said that he put loyalty to Donald Trump above his obligations under the law, and the jury agreed in a very rapid verdict. They spent fewer than 3 hours deliberating and have now come back with two guilty verdicts against Steve Bannon. So for more, let's bring in ABC News' Zareen Shaw and former federal prosecutor for the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois, my home, Renato Mariotti, my home state and homeland there. So Zareen, let me begin with you, however. Steve Bannon, guilty on all counts. Break down what this means for Bannon and for the January 6th Investigative Committee.
Yeah, so Terry, that first count is for failing to appear for a deposition in October of 2021, a maximum of 1 year behind bars. And count 2 also carries the same maximum behind bars as well. And Bannon is, just for a little background, he's a former top advisor to Donald Trump. He is seen as the mastermind to his rise in power. And that is why he is so important. That's why we're talking about him right now. The two charges are counts of criminal contempt because he refused to appear in front of the committee, in front of the January 6th committee. And it could also hold a maximum fine of up to $200,000. But the committee wanted to speak to him because they believed he had information that he was actively involved in planning, in the logistics, in the fundraising of Trump's effort to overturn the election. Bannon's lawyer, though, he says that the charges were politically motivated. He said there were good faith negotiations over the concerns with testifying. And he said no one ignored that subpoena and the dates were all in flux. The committee said they heard nothing from him until that first deadline had passed. And that, his lawyer said that they were protected by Trump's executive privilege. Well, the committee came back and they said that Trump is no longer the president and that Biden has not been employed, for the last at least 3 years.
Absolutely, Zareen. And Steve Bannon was out there on right-wing social media, his own podcast, kind of bragging that he was defying Congress. And this is what you get for that. Renato, we were just listening to our colleague, Jonathan Karl, who says this is a significant verdict for the power of Congress to enforce its subpoenas. Inside the courtroom say Bannon was stone-faced when the verdict was read out. Legally, what do these guilty verdicts mean for Bannon? And I'll ask you the same question for the committee.
Well, first of all, for Bannon, this means between 30 days and 2 years in prison. So that's significant. I will also say that it does mean that there is a consequence for Bannon. If Bannon prevailed here, I think it would mean that essentially congressional subpoenas meant nothing because he took no steps whatsoever to comply with the subpoenas. In fact, he almost was waving a red flag at the or a red cape at the Justice Department, begging for an indictment. He didn't respond by the deadline to Congress. He didn't produce anything. He didn't comply at all, and really never shown any interest to even negotiate or engage with the Congress until a week before trial. And that stands in contrast to others like Mark Meadows, who ultimately were not prosecuted, but pursued a more sophisticated strategy where they did produce some documents like text messages and then filed a lawsuit, a preemptive lawsuit. So I have to say, what this means is that certainly anyone choosing to defy Congress is going to have to think about this going forward.
So, yeah, Steve Bannon, who, again, Mr. Nationalist, Trump's right-hand man of the White House, is found in contempt of Congress. And as they said before, it's the simple fact of the matter that he could see anywhere from 30 days, almost 2.5 years in prison. But the reason I said if he's trying to be loyal as all get out, like he thinks that Trump somehow is going to come back in 2024 and pardon him. And I wish people understand that. The more these January 6th Commission hearings go on, the more information that comes out, the more the GOP's hopes that Trump comes back in 2024 and a red wave shows out is slowly diminishing by the day. And I don't feel bad for Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon he's about as close to a white supremacist as one can get outside of Richard Spector. But at the same time, it just goes to show you, these are all the people in his camp. These are all the same people that Republicans were just bowing up to and had no problem saying it. And at the same time, we should all be freaking worried. We should all be freaking worried, especially after we talked about on the midweek review that a bill was pushed through the National Defense Act amendment that sat there and said that all law enforcement agencies will root out neo-Nazi and white supremacism out of their agencies. All House Republicans voted against it. So if that just goes to show you about Steve Bannon, it just goes to show you about Trump's cabinet, it just goes to show you that there's still a lot of them in there that we need to root out. But, hopes and prayers. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover these last two stories before we get to our Feel Good segment. I wanted to cover this one because I have to give Governor Newsom credit for this, because for all those that were worried about the abortion law, Governor Newsom looked at the abortion law and said, let me apply it to guns. What I mean by that is he signed a bill into law that allows private citizens to bring civil lawsuits against anyone who manufactures, distributes, transports, or imports assault weapons or ghost guns, which are banned in the state. That California Senate Bill 1327 is modeled after the same Texas law that allows private citizens to bring civil litigation against abortion providers or anyone who assists a pregnant person in obtaining an abortion as early as 6 weeks of pregnancy. Do you love the irony here? That the simple fact of the matter is, it allows citizens to sue said people a minimum of $10,000 on each weapon involved, as well as attorney fees. Now, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some gun nuts and manufacturers in California that are very nervous right now if they follow these things. Keep in mind, this is for importing a transport or manufacturing, distributing, or importing assault weapons or ghost guns. Keep in mind, ghost guns don't require an age limit. Ghost guns, for most states, are still allowed. Except in California, if you're caught by this, lawsuits can happen. And maybe that is the way we finally solve this. Maybe that's the way we finally solve this, to get people to understand that gun reform is needed. Bring in the lawyers. Nobody likes going to court except lawyers. Lawyers can bill for how many hours and for endless trials on days. But again, I have to give Governor Newsom and the state of California credit to use an open door that's been allowed in Texas to actually assist them in California. I thought that was pretty cool. But speaking of the last story I got, guys, before we get to our Feel Good News segment, it's more of a laugh because, again, Josh Hawley, however you pronounce his name, Hawley, I like to call him, if Ted Cruz was 50 pounds lighter and was actually American and not Canadian. Josh Hawley was one of those staunch reporters that decided to ride the Trump wave and decided to insult a UC Berkeley professor, and is now a part of the January 6th Commission because when that riot came down, he embodied a track star, literally and figuratively.
Told the committee that GOP Senator Josh Hawley's fist pump outside the Capitol riled up the crowd outside that day. Listen to this.
As you can see in this photo, he raised his fist in solidarity with the protesters already amassing at the security gates. We spoke with a Capitol police officer who was out there at the time. She told us that Senator Hawley's gesture riled up the crowd, and it bothered her greatly because he was doing it in a safe space, protected by the officers and the barriers. Later that day, Senator Hawley fled after those protesters he helped to rile up stormed the Capitol. See for yourself.
So he's running away, right? He's out there.
Not to quote a trap song, but he's a track star. He gonna run away when the mob comes. And again, this is one of the staunchest Trump reporters GOP on the Hill. And imagine that you support the same mob that you literally just pulled a Usain Bolt from the Capitol building on. Excuse me for that hiccup. I just thought that was funny. He's gonna have a hard time explaining that in his reelection. But that being said, guys, we're gonna move to our feel good segment because usually how the fact we got here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, make lose faith in humanity. But hey, it's the weekend. Hopefully, you're not on God's hot plate, which is most of the U.S. and most of the world right now, who still don't believe in climate change because this isn't the coolest summer we've ever had. No, this is when you go to Waffle House and leave the gas on. It's freaking hot. So wherever you are, please be safe. Please be hydrated. Please give yourself plenty of shade. Sunstroke is not fun at all. But that being said, guys, we want to leave you all with a couple of good stories, some to leave you some good vibrations out with. This one might hit a little bit closer to home because, yes, if you're not aware or if you're not somewhere within the sound of the U.S., the Mega Millions lottery is tonight. I believe it's 660. I mean, not tonight. It was Friday. So I'm sorry. It's Friday today. It's Saturday. My bad. So if you were actually were able to, so if you did win the lottery, don't tell nobody. And if not, hey, that's the reason why you play. So, sometime if someone didn't win the 666 million, oh, that's wrong. 660 million. There we go. Friday, well, it just crawls over. But I do love lottery stories, especially this one we did talk about on the Wednesday review. This lady right here did win the lottery in her state of Kentucky, $146,000. In which she decided to take $2,000 of that jackpot and gift cards and decided to give them out in the very same store. She does believe in paying it forward and thought she would just do something in return. And I thought that was pretty cool. Now, I would be the first person to sit there and say that when you do win the lottery, all the thoughts that come to mind, I cannot tell you. See, what a lot of people understand, it's not the fact that it's not the fact that, that you have a lot of money. It's the fact of the matter that financial problems are no longer your problems. I mean, technically, I would have said it best. A reasonable person, if you won the lottery, say like you won Mega Millions, say you won 660, so you'll probably get back, depending on your state, let's just round it off and say, let's say you get about 580 million back. Reasonably, a person in their lifetime cannot spend $580 million. Even after paying taxes on it every year, still, theoretically, you cannot blow $580 million. You could even blow $20 million, honestly, if you live reasonably or live below your means. But again, that's me. But it's just, it's great to dream. It's great to sit there and think about our house I've always wanted. I always get the car I always wanted. I always wanted a vacation house or summer house. Take a vacation to wherever I want to go. Although right now with COVID and it's Decepticons out there, you might be a little bit more choicey on where you go. But kudos to that woman. Everybody, good karma does come to those who wait. But I ain't gonna lie, I keep hoping every time I get lottery, just Lord, this is your humble servant. Anyway, moving right along, guys. I want to cover the story as well because I love bowling. It's kind of been a while since I've done it, but there's a man out there right now who is he'll celebrate his 100th birthday, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I think this guy still hustles some bowling. That's just me. Check it out.
If you hear me talking to my ball, if it doesn't do good, well, try to encourage the ball to do better. There is a warmth with bowling that you don't find in other sports, like you do here. This is my home away from home, basically. I do it for the exercise, for the people. It's become part of me. I want to bowl right up to the time that the Undertaker comes for me.
I'm not gonna lie, that man hustles. I mean, definitely happy birthday to him, but 100 years old? 100 years old is all well and good, but I'm gonna call it what it is. If he takes strikes like that, do not take him for granted. If that dude plays for money, hey, you might want to shake it off. You don't want to get your ass handed to you. That's all I'm saying. But definitely happy birthday to him. The last one we got, guys, is honestly a Make-A-Wish story, which again, you would think, kids who defy things and defy very, very, very tragic situations and come out shine like a rose. This kid decided, hey, I beat my kidney transplant. Let me defy death one more time. I can't knock him for it. I do the same thing.
Enter for a very deserving young boy. This segment is sponsored by Duracell, and to celebrate the launch of their batteries with new Power Boost ingredients, they've teamed up with Make-A-Wish to surprise kids across the country all summer with outdoor experiences. One of these wishes connected survivalist Bear Grylls with one of his biggest fans.
He's one of the world's most recognized faces of outdoor survival.
I've got to be an adventure.
Over the years, Bear Grylls has ascended mountains with celebrities like Kate Winslet.
It's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, look at it.
And journeyed through the Alaskan wilderness with former President Barack Obama.
Hopefully I'll be able to keep up.
But his next protege, this brave 14-year-old kidney transplant survivor, Cameron Williams, whose one wish was to go on an adventure with Bear Grylls himself.
Hey, buddy, it's Bear Grylls here. I'm coming your way.
Wait, what? Bear Grylls?
If you look up in the sky, you should see the chopper approaching now.
Get ready for an adventure, my friend.
With the help of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the extreme survivalist is taking on double duty as spokesperson for our sponsor, Duracell, who planned an outdoor adventure that this young man will never forget.
Nice to meet you. Can I have a hug? Yeah, it was such a surprise to see him. The fact that he came here in a helicopter was like crazy.
So from here, we're going to head into the forest, and then we're looking for this old abandoned building, which is going to be the first kind of marker on like a little treasure hunt we're doing. Going into this abandoned building is always going to be a little nerve-wracking, especially when you can't see. We've got some good headlamps. We're powered up. The new Duracell Power Boost ingredients help you to get more out of the moments in your life that really matter. Let's have a look at that.
The objective was to find a box which contained GPS. We didn't know where it was. There was like hidden doorways.
Try and put it. Okay. GPS.
That GPS leading them to their next checkpoint and the kind of snack that Bear Grylls fans have come to expect.
It's hard to swallow, isn't it?
It takes me a while to swallow things.
And a chance for a heart-to-heart.
You've been through so much in your life, haven't you, Cameron?
Yeah.
so much. Tell me what the operation was.
Basically, they had to input a new kidney, a bigger one, into my body. These two in the back were too small for my body.
At a young age, that's a scary operation, and I think you're pretty amazing. And you're going to go on and do so many great things in your life, and also so many people are going to see your story and think if he can keep going and keep smiling through that, then so can I.
Yeah.
Anytime you ever need anything, you call me, all right?
Okay.
I love meeting heroes, young people who've had some battles and had to face some real obstacles in their life. And I can always recognize spirit. You know, it's often quiet and quite shy, like Cameron is. And he showed that spirit today.
Bear took his time out to spend a time with a child that, you know, wanted to meet him. That was special.
It was amazing. I mean, I didn't even expect it.
So at the end of an adventure, we've got an old military Hummer truck to take us out of here. Here we go. Let's do it.
Okay, I'm gonna call it. That kid's gonna wind up being next Bear Grylls. I mean, I thought it was, like I said, I always like watching Make-A-Wish stories because, you know, really taking their time out. And again, to survive a double kidney transplant, dude's awesome. And again, it's Bear Grylls. If anybody's gonna get you out of any type of apocalyptic situation, that's the dude. Besides MacGyver, if he was a real person, I'd go for it. But anyway, that's gonna do it for this podcast, guys. I do thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting you know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Before we do got it here, a little shameless plugging. I do want to shout out to my buddy Bond at Big BZA Dot. You can definitely find him at Vaughn Westfield on Facebook, Big BZA Dot on all socials. Definitely has new beats page, so definitely check him out on all socials at Big BZA Dot, and of course on Facebook at Vaughn Weatherspoon. Yours truly, guys. You can find me on BlackBox447 on Instagram. You can find me at BlackBox_447 on Twitter. You can find me at BlackBox_447 on TikTok. And also on Twitch. I am definitely needing to do better about all these socials. But definitely like me, follow me there, guys. I do post a lot of things. I do review a lot of television shows, movies, video games, also gym stuff because I do a couple push-ups. At the same time, guys, I'm all about positively moving people forward, motivating, you know, because again, we have had a rough couple of years. So the only thing I will sit there and say is, guys, we need to work on being kinder to each other. I'm not saying you gotta be, you know, you ain't gotta be good Samaritan, but just be decent, humanly decent. Say hello, say hi, how you doing? Check on people, because we're all fighting battles that nobody knows about. But maybe just saying hi or hello or just checking up on somebody can do a lot more than just bringing a light into their lives. You can actually wind up saving a life, because it takes 0 energy to be nice. It takes 100% energy to be a dick. So just effing be nice. That's it. That's all I ask. Also, guys, with COVID and Decepticons still out, please, oh please, oh please, be very careful, especially if you're going to large crowds. Still wear a mask, still protect yourselves, because again, when you protect yourself, you protect others. Just because it's summertime, still, God's hot plate has not let us go. I mean, even in Tennessee, we have been in the 90s for almost the last consecutive, going on almost a month now. So again, wherever you are, please stay hydrated, please stay covered. Please, oh please, take care of yourself, because just like the sun in Super Mario Brothers 3, it is trying to kill us. That being said, guys, last thing I'll say about how the Frack got here, it's all about staying informed. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're simply trying to inform you by giving you all the information. Basically, make up your own mind, but provide a logical perspective that goes along with it as well. We do a lot better when we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by basically making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like elect our first woman to elect our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first woman to a high-ranking position in the U.S. Navy. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything still go up by our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game? And most importantly, how the Frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and we will all get through this.